Good evening from Earthquake Stadium. Charles Wollin, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan with you here. Jamon Moore is with his family. You're watching episode number 63 of Black and Azul, a special Pride edition of Black and Azul. It was actually Pride evening here for the San Jose Earthquakes as they get their third win in a row against a familiar foe of theirs, one they've had the better of as of late, the Vancouver Whitecaps, a 3-0 victory tonight for the Earthquakes. Joel Soria, your instant reaction from tonight's result and the 3 points for this Quakes team.
Well, good evening to you, Charles. Good evening, Alex. Good evening to every viewer out there. Just one of those nights, where the Quakes score 3-0 against a 9-man Vancouver Whitecaps side, and Paul Marie scores a goal. It's obviously on a more serious note, though. Another solid victory for the Quakes, who have definitely turned the page. It seems really interested in talking about this upcoming weekend's matchup against the Timbers, and we will get into that in just a couple of moments. But a formidable performance from the Quakes. Espinosa looked really dangerous, specifically, I thought. And JT Marcinkowski obviously came up huge more than once tonight.
Yeah, we still got some post-game music here playing in the background, none other than the late, great Mac Dre. But Alex, over to you. A night where Espinosa opens the scoring just after halftime. Andy Rios gets his second goal in his second game in succession here. And then Paul Marie with the third goal. And you and I were chatting, during this game, and the first half had so many chances for both these two teams, very open. But JT Marcinkowski also very pivotal tonight in goal with his distribution as well.
Absolutely, Charles. JT Marcinkowski was fantastic. Espinosa was also strong. I think this was San Jose's best performance of the season. It was their first shutout victory of the year, and definitely their most complete, their most comprehensive victory. For the first time this season, it felt like they had control, like they knew what they were supposed to do, and they were doing it. Their build-up was smooth, and that's in large part thanks to JT, obviously, who was just phenomenal in goal. Espinosa was strong on the right side. He scored his second goal of the year. And even though Vancouver pressed them really aggressively at the start, San Jose were just totally unfazed. And yes, Vancouver couldn't maintain that pressure. Yes, they were reduced to 9 men. I think you could definitely argue that the Quakes were quite lucky with both of those red cards. But that really shouldn't take away from a really strong, really competent performance. I think Matias Almeyda will sleep well tonight.
Let's talk about that confidence. Let's talk about the way that this team has been building. 3 matches now in a row, 3 victories, 2 of them here at home at Earthquake Stadium. Their first wins here at Earthquake Stadium. So getting that under their belt, firstly. Secondly, beating 2 LA teams that are pretty good. You always want to beat your rival, LA Galaxy. They struggled against LAFC for such a long time under Matias Almeyda, finally got that win. And then kind of get a routine victory, almost like it seems, tonight against this Vancouver team. Adding all these things together and putting it into perspective after 2 lopsided losses. And those were very big lopsided losses. You're talking about losing by 5 goals in both games against Portland and Colorado. What specifically does it mean for this team? Are they on track here to continue for this playoff push, Joel Soria?
Without a doubt, Charles, without a doubt, the Quakes have now leapfrogged into the 7th position in the West. They have a point advantage on the 8th place Rapids. They've won, obviously, 3 in a row. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, despite all the flaws that the San Jose team were showing in the past months, you best believe that they were going to find a way to claw themselves into that 7th and 8th spot in the West and try to fight for a playoff spot as the year comes to an end. It's just the nature of this team. It's the nature of MLS, as we know, very lenient when it comes to allowing teams into the playoff race, or as I like to call it, the big party. And the Quakes have obviously done a fair share of work, right? In silence, they've managed to train properly now, given the situations improving, and they have definitely emphasized rotations more often than not. Matias Almeyda has also tweaked his tactical philosophy a bit, and that's obviously been a big plus. It's been a breath of fresh air for this team. Tonight we saw good performances, not only from Marcinkowski and from Cristian Espinosa, but also from players like Carlos Fierro, who, for instance, wasn't really having the time of his life in San Jose. Andy Rio scores again for a second straight game, making most of you mad at home. You know, these are definitely the type of circumstances that will propel this team to be a playoff, not only a playoff contender, but I would dare to say a playoff team.
I'm not sure about that, Joel. I'm not prepared to go that far at this stage. But I think there are two differences in this Quakes team that have made them so much better. And the first has got to be the purple sweater, Matias Almeyda's purple sweater. I think we have a photo here that we can pull up. He wore this sweater for the first time during the LAFC game. That was their first victory of this phase of games. They got the win, and he's worn it every game since. And I feel like it's a lucky charm at this point. First, it was the yellow shorts at the MLS's back tournament, and now it's the purple sweater. But in all seriousness, I think the difference in these last three games has been JT Marcinkowski. He's been an absolute revelation in goal. Tonight, I think he definitely had the man of the match performance for the Quakes. It's just amazing how much better he makes their back line. Vancouver were pumping balls into the box, and JT was put under a lot of pressure, and he thrived. He was cool on the ball. He made some absolutely phenomenal saves. He was also confident in the air, and his distribution was great. I think, he's played well in these last three games that he started, but he didn't really face that many shots on goal. And there were some questions about how he would perform under pressure. I think we have a chart that we've shown on the show in the past, and that I'm hoping Jason can pull up here. It's a chart from our friend and co-host Jamon Moore that shows that JT in the last two games, he'd actually faced the fewest shots per 90 minutes of any goalkeeper in MLS. So there was questions, right? Would he be able to replicate that kind of strong performance under more pressure? He did tonight. He faced a lot more shots tonight. Vancouver peppered him with shots and bombarded him with crosses, and he rose to the occasion. He was just phenomenal. There were so many moments that made you go, wow. Just off the top of my head, I think there was a pinpoint pass to Lima, a glorious long ball to Espinosa, and then that fingertip save from Andy Rhodes' header. It just makes you wonder, I guess, if he was doing that stuff in training, if he was playing that way in training, why has Almeyda held him back for so long? Almeyda's been downplaying his readiness and tempering our expectations, which is just mind-boggling given how much better he's played than Daniel Vega. It's not even close, I don't think.
Yeah, we've got a comment here from John J. He said JT is unbeaten this season. The season officially started on his first start. Joshua Marroquin says Beeson. Raul Rodriguez, JT distribution is phenomenal. Joshua Marroquin, back to him. Beeson continues to perform well. The Quakes won't buy Alanis. Mr. Cali says buen juego, muchachos. Greg Cohn says Beeson continued to improve tonight. Have you noticed the set piece defense has improved with a taller player in the back? John Jay again about Beeson was very solid for a second straight game. Perhaps Jesse has hit another first rounder. Raul Rodriguez, JT, and then showing the sign that he thinks he's better than Vega. Alicio Sandoval, purple sweater for the win. Greg Cohn, I thought Lima should get some consideration for man of the match. So we've got the purple sweater references. We've got a lot of JT love here. John Jay, back to Fierro, has been showing flashes similar to what Joel just chatted about in his open. But I do want to get back to Jackson Yueill just for a second, because he did sign that new contract today. Sometimes it's the little things from Jackson Yueill. But overall, Jackson Yueill doesn't have to have a tremendous performance in a game like this. I don't necessarily think, Joel, other than with him and Judson in midfield, just kind of control the game, similar to what Alex just pointed out. But just decent and good performances, solid all around from this team. Hard to find too much of a weak spot, really, on specifically tonight player ratings.
Well, it's the same midfield duo that took this Quakes team to another level last season, right? Jackson and Judson, the Brazilian and the American, the captain and one of the Quakes' most indispensable players in the Brazilian. Without a doubt, both of those players showed up tonight. You could tell by the tempo that they were playing at, and obviously the cherry on top, which is Jackson's contract.
And I actually think that Jackson had a quietly really strong game tonight. San Jose's possession in their build-up I think it was probably the best I've ever seen it. They had multiple passing sequences that were just gorgeous, that started from JT Marcinkowski and ended with dangerous shots on target. And that's something that was a focus there in training. That was something that Chris Wondolowski and Jackson Yueill talked about after their losses to Colorado. Even more than their defensive woes, that was something they were talking about. And that work paid off tonight because they were able to play their way out of pressure and work the ball up the field quickly in a really systematic manner. And I think it's pretty amazing how they've gone from so bad to so good in that front in just a couple of weeks.
For those of you that are tuning in to Black and Azul this evening, we will have the live press conference of Matias Almeyda, as well as a couple of players. And once we get those players and their names, we'll let you know who they are, and we will bring you the live press conference here on Black and Azul. Meanwhile, do us a favor, subscribe. Please subscribe. Also like our videos as well. Also, if you need to dislike our videos, we appreciate the feedback. So any feedback is good feedback. We like to hear from you, the fans, the supporters. Also, I would love to hear some questions. I know there's been a run of a lot of losses previously to tonight, and a lot of questions in there. We like to hear other questions as well, even if this team wins or ties. So please type in the chat some questions that you have, but keep it coming with the comments. We do like to hear from everybody. It's important, and we want you to feel heard. That's the most important thing. Community run and supported. Black and Azul. Peter Castellino, he says, you have to trust and believe in Matias. Alicio Sandoval, I don't think Vaco comes back on his current salary. Mark McCarran Fraser, yeah, Rios and Fierro not worth what we're paying them. Interesting, obviously enough. Interesting tonight. They did have that connection down the left. It was Carlos Fierro feeding Rios for his second goal in second match in succession as well. Here. M. Ramiro Vaquerito, obviously throwing out a little bit of some love for Vaco as well. Kevin Gomes tuning into the program, and hello to you, my friend. Nice to check in on the score and not be down 3-0 20 minutes in lately. Good to see you, and thanks for tuning in to the show. Back to Mark McCarran Fraser, because this is a good question, and I'd like the team to tackle it here before the press conference. Is Matias worth having as a coach if he only wins when he abandons his magic strategy? So take this question for kind of what it is and kind of what you feel here. A little bit of changing in the tactics as well. I certainly think Matias Almeyda is certainly worth having as a coach, but I'm going to throw it to Joel here to answer this question on Matias Almeyda.
Without a doubt, you have to keep someone like Matias Almeyda on board. Matias, what makes Matias and other high caliber coaches high caliber to begin with is their adaptability and their willingness to, circumvent barriers and obstacles that present themselves in front of him. Every big manager in the world does this. I think that most of us were getting lost in this narrative that Matias was stubborn. Yes, he's been stubborn here in San Jose for a large period of his time. But Matias, if you take a look at what he's done in Chivas, what he's done in Banfield, and what he's done at River, they're all different. They're all different in intensities and different silhouettes of the style that Matias tries to preach game in and game out. He's made some alterations. He's adjusted at every place that he's coached at. So I think that, regardless of him kind of turning his back on the type of coach that he's been in San Jose for the most part, you have to trust him and you have to believe that what he's doing is going to pay dividends, because as we all know, it's paying off at the moment. I'm really intrigued, as I mentioned earlier, in seeing this Quakes team that has won 3 in a row go up against the Portland Timbers, who are on fire right now. I think that is going to be the ultimate matchup, and that is going to give every person who watches the San Jose Earthquakes religiously a good glimpse of where this Quakes team is actually at.
Joel, I think the Quakes might get humbled a little in that game against Portland, because LAFC, LA Galaxy, and Vancouver, they've all been playing poorly, right? And the question is whether San Jose can take this momentum from these 3 wins and get results against the Portlands and the Seattle Sounders. And I still don't know. I think the jury's still out. I'm not sure whether this is right now a playoff quality team yet. They're certainly not a burning dumpster fire like they were 3 weeks ago. But I'm not entirely convinced until they start playing teams like Portland and Seattle how strong this team really is.
No, I'd agree with you. I would agree with you 100%. I was joking about the Vancouver Whitecaps on Twitter a couple of minutes ago. The mighty Vancouver Whitecaps playing with 9 men. I mean, you have to win these type of games, right? Especially here at home. There was no excuse. There was no way around it. The Quakes had to win tonight. They had to make it 3 in a row. They had to leapfrog into the playoff position, and they passed that test. That's fine. I think all of us were expecting that. And in addition to the win, all of you fans got a couple of bonus prizes, right? You got the Jackson Yueill signing earlier today. You got the Paul Marie first goal in MLS, their first MLS goal. You got the Haji sighting. You got the Fuentes appearance. I mean, a lot of cool little things that happen along the way. But yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Alex. And I've held this belief deep down inside. In order for the Quakes to really convince me, they need to do what they did tonight without the red cards against teams like Portland Timbers and the Seattle Sounders. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, those teams obviously top of the Western Conference. Let's just pull up the standings here just so everybody can take a look at what we're seeing and where this team is right now. Seattle, top of the West. Portland just behind Seattle. Sporting Minnesota, LAFC, and Dallas tied on 21 points. And then the Quakes, just 1 point behind those teams. Of course, those 2 teams have a game in hand, as you can see. And then Colorado, 1 point behind the Quakes, and they've actually have 3 games in hand. And they've proved to be somewhat of a trickier opponent this year than usual. But right there at that line, 19, and then Houston Dynamo 19, Real Salt Lake on 18 as well. The Galaxy, bottom of the West. We're just getting word that Matias Almeyda will be appearing in just a moment. Once we have that, we will bring that to you live here on Black and Azul. Keep giving your comments, chatting with us as well. We really appreciate it. Alicio Sandoval, thoughts on the Player Kids movement at the end of the game? It was funny because I was up here and I said I'd like to see Fuentes get on. And I didn't know that he actually had gone on the pitch because I was setting up all of our equipment up here and making sure that everything was all good to go, lighting, audio, etc. But I turned to Joel and I said, yes, Fuentes, yes, good. The fact that he's on the field. But I think the player-kids movement is good. It's necessary for this team. It's necessary for this side. It's necessary for a club like San Jose to play the kids. And they found many kids that are diamonds in the rough. I mean, how could you not, right?
I think that's absolutely right, Charles. And I would direct everybody to an article that was written this last week by our esteemed co-host, Jamon Moore, who can't be with us tonight. He's traveling, but he wrote an article about how it's not play the kids at this point. It's the kids can play, because we're seeing guys like Tanner Beeson step up and make huge contributions. Guys like Marcos Lopez, who earned himself a call up to the Peruvian national team, and that's why he was in the starting lineup tonight. And then guys like Jackson Yueill as well. And tonight we also saw, because they had such a comfortable lead, we saw Fuentes, we saw Cowell, we saw Scahan get subbed on. And I think they all played strong. Obviously, the Quakes were up 2 men, had a 2-goal advantage by that point. But I think games like these give those players confidence, and that can only be a good thing for this Quakes team.
Yeah, I think that the Quakes have put themselves in the position where they're so dependent on the youngsters that if the youngsters fail, then the team fails. And if the youngsters succeed, then the team succeeds. We've been seeing that really just take place over the last couple of months. The Quakes were doing really poorly. Following MLS's back, Marcos Lopez comes onto the scene and changes the panorama completely. Cade Cowell does as well. And now we're seeing it with JT Marcinkowski in this last 3-game stretch. We're seeing it from Beeson, who has shown that he can be a 10-year MLS player if he continues on this path. Although I would want to say that I think it's...
All right, we'll hear from Matias Almeyda right now.
Almeyda. We'll take a few questions in English and a few in Spanish. Let's start with Alex Morgan.
Hi, Matias. Congratulations on the victory. It looked like JT Marcinkowski had a really strong game in goal tonight. He made a couple strong saves, and his distribution was also really strong. What are your thoughts about how he's played, and how much does he help the team specifically in the build-up?
Creo que JT tuvo un muy buen partido, tuvo un par de atajadas muy buenas y también jugó muy bien con los pies. ¿Qué tan importante fue hoy, especialmente en la salida del equipo?
Primero, buenas noches.
First things, good evening.
Creo que todos estaban bien.
I think everybody's doing well.
Desde el momento que tuvimos situaciones claras,
The moments that we had clear situations,
no hay un jugador que se destaque sino el equipo.
there's not one player that stands out, but rather the team.
Cuando se juega al fútbol, se juega de 11.
When you play football, you play with 11.
Y lo más importante que tiene San José
Most important thing that San Jose has
es que cada jugador tiene que sumar su granito de arena
is that each player has to give their own grain of sand
en la posición que esté.
in whatever position he's at.
Nunca me quedo con un jugador, sino con el equipo.
I never take away just one player, but the team.
Thank you, Matias. Let's go now to Jamon Moore.
Hi, Matias. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
And congratulations on getting back toward the playoff line now. My question for you is about the purple sweater. Is it lucky? Can you explain to us the purple sweater that you've been wearing for the last 3 games? You seem to keep winning every time you wear it.
Su pregunta sobre el over verde violeta que tenés, si el over es de buena suerte y que lo usas ya 3 partidos seguidos.
No, lo peor que haría en mi vida es manejarme o vestirme por la suerte.
The worst thing I could do in my life is carry myself or dress myself because of luck.
Nunca pienso que me pongo, la verdad. No soy un modelo.
The truth is I never think about what I put on. I'm not a model.
Si creyera en un color o creyera en lo que me pongo,
If I believe in a color, I believe what I put on.
Sería realmente una persona insegura.
I would be a very insecure person.
Yo estoy seguro del trabajo que hacemos
I'm certain about the work that we do,
y no depende, digamos, del color de ropa que me pongo.
and it does not depend on the color of the clothing I put on.
Thank you, Matias. We'll go now to Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matias, congratulations on the win tonight. Wanted to ask about Andy Rios. He scored in his second game in a row. Seems like he's starting to come on. You've talked about other players on the roster who have taken some time to acclimate. Do you think that Andy's going through the same process, and do you think he's settling a little bit better in MLS right now?
Sobre Andy Rios, llevando partidos y convierte, si anteriormente vos hablaste que hubo algunos jugadores que le costó un poco adaptarse a la liga, si pensás que Andy Rios ya está adaptando mejor.
No, vuelvo a lo de antes, que creo que el equipo cuando funciona de una manera como equipo,
I'll go back to what I said earlier, when the team functions as a team,
logramos tener el estilo que buscamos.
we're able to achieve the style that we're looking for.
Andy Ríos por ahí no concretaba acciones de gol,
Andy Rios might have not been able to finish the plays,
pero es uno de los que más corre,
but he's one of the players that runs the most.
es uno de los que juega con el alma,
He's one of the players who plays with his soul.
hace un trabajo que por ahí no se ve,
He does work that maybe isn't seen,
y bueno, cuando hacen goles es una alegría para ellos.
and when they score, it's a joy for them.
Pero no me detengo en un jugador, creo yo estoy convencido que cuando los 11 juegan para los 11,
But I don't just take away one player. I'm convinced that when the 11 play for the 11,
trabajamos como equipo,
we work as a team.
y el fútbol se juega en equipo.
And football, you play as a team.
Thank you, Matias. Let's take one more in English from Robert Jonas.
Thank you, and congratulations, Coach. A 3-game winning streak. It's been a long time. I think last summer was the last time we saw such a streak of performances. What have you been most pleased about with your team? And I've seen, we've seen almost the exact same starting 11 these last 3 games, and with very small changes. How much has that impacted the performances on the field?
En la racha de 3 victorias ya me parece desde el verano pasado que el equipo no tuvo una racha así. ¿Qué más te gustó del equipo? Y parece que hubo poco cambio entre tus partidos. ¿Cuánto impacta eso? Y si eso influye y es una ventaja para el equipo.
Creo que por ahí nos estamos olvidando del torneo que jugamos en Orlando.
I think we might be forgetting about the tournament that we played in Orlando.
Realmente se vio un equipo competitivo.
We really saw a competitive team.
El reinicio de este torneo para todos los equipos es difícil.
The restart of this tournament for each team was difficult.
Y este torneo es inestable como estamos viviendo hoy en el mundo.
And this tournament is unstable, like we're living all around the world.
Se hace difícil entrenar poco y jugar.
It's difficult to train little and to play.
Hoy teníamos justo 20 jugadores.
Today we had 20 players even.
Han participado muchos jóvenes.
Many youngsters participated.
Pero muchos equipos están pasando por momentos buenos y por momentos malos.
But many teams are going through good moments and bad moments.
Pero aquellos que estamos dentro del fútbol no podemos tapar el sol con un dedo.
But those of us who are in football So there's going to be good moments and regular moments, like we talked about after each game.
Porque es común en este torneo que estamos jugando.
Because it's common in this tournament that we're playing.
Yo creo que reponerse después de los partidos negativos que tuvimos.
I think standing up after the negative games that we had.
Hay una gran convicción, un trabajo especial que hemos hecho.
There's great conviction and special work that we've done.
Hay una comunicación e interpretación adecuada.
There's communication and the adequate interpretation.
Y pudimos revertir la situación de esa racha negativa en la cual habíamos iniciado este torneo.
We were able to overcome that negative streak that we had at the restart of the tournament.
Pero no podemos descontar de que el torneo es difícil para todos.
but we can't not count that the tournament is difficult for everybody.
Thank you, Matias. Let's take 3 questions in Spanish, starting with Joel Soria.
Buenas noches, Matías. Joel Soria. Hoy se dio la noticia de que Jackson firmó un nuevo contrato con el equipo. Obviamente el equipo hoy benefició mucho de otra victoria, 3 consecutivas, y están dentro de los playoffs al momento. Para mantenerse en esa posición o quizás elevarse un poco más, Matías, y como tú indicas, solo tienes 20 jugadores, juegas con muchos jóvenes al momento, no tienes a Baco, no tienes a Guram, López se fue a la selección. Matías, ¿crees que necesitas quizás 1 o 2 jugadores para poder reemplazar ese hueco que han dejado los jugadores que ahorita no pueden jugar por debidas situaciones?
Realmente yo estoy pensando al día a día, a partido tras partido, a ver cómo vamos a entrenar mañana, cómo vuelven los jugadores mañana después de este partido. Eso lo dejamos para el futuro. Hoy somos los que estamos, y los que estamos tenemos que entregar el máximo. No hay excusas, no hay pretextos, tenemos que luchar con las armas que tenemos. Sabemos cuál es la manera de luchar que tiene este equipo. Creo que es importante haber conseguido 3 victorias seguidas, sobre todo cuando veníamos de derrotas tras derrotas, con muchísimos goles, y cambiar mentalidades cuando el resultado es adverso es muy difícil. Entonces el trabajo que han hecho estos chicos, junto a todo San José, ha sido bueno. Y bueno, trataremos de mantenernos de esta manera, sabiendo que es difícil.
Thank you, Matias. Let's go now to Carlos Ramirez.
Profe, un abrazo fuerte, Carlos Mauricio Ramírez de Telemundo, ¿cómo está?
Un abrazo.
Profe, decía que el tema de los colores no tiene un color de la suerte, uno pensaría que es el azul, ¿no? Digo, por el sitio en el que nació. Hablando, profe, del partido que viene, de los Portland Timbers, un equipo que los goleó la última vez que los enfrentaron, ¿qué ha aprendido de ese partido que siente que tiene que ponerse en práctica para que no se repita un resultado como el anterior?
Bueno, hoy se disfruta un triunfo. Digamos que hay que darse lugar y espacio para mantenerse con tranquilidad, con calma, pero nunca dejar de disfrutar de ver un triunfo, de ver que los chicos han jugado realmente muy bien al fútbol hoy, de que vienen trabajando duro, y ya a partir de mañana empezamos a pensar en el rival difícil que nos va a tocar, y veremos de qué manera lo enfrentaremos, sobre todo porque queremos ver quién se recupera, quién queda dolorido de este partido. Entonces, hoy la mente es disfrutar en familia, como familia, el haber logrado un triunfo de la manera que lo logramos.
Thank you. Let's take one last question from Carlos Yueill.
Profe Carlos Yueill, también de Telemundo Deportes. Me llama la atención que había hablado de que había poco tiempo para entrenar, poco tiempo para los partidos, y le puede dar la vuelta. ¿Qué trabajo se pudo hacer para poder recuperar, sobre todo en el físico? Obviamente lo anímico ayuda a las victorias, pero poder tener esta seguidilla de partidos donde el equipo ya se ve más recuperado. ¿Cómo pudieron mantener ahora el físico, sabiendo que ahora, como usted dice, tienen que recuperar contra un equipo que le acaba de meter 6 goles al Galaxy en esta idea rara de fútbol, que es momento raro del fútbol que estamos viviendo, para poder salir adelante? ¿Cómo se trabajó para poder recuperar en lo físico y, bueno, las victorias que ayudan en lo anímico?
Sí, creo que lo dije después de las goleadas que nos han hecho, que he pasado por momentos de mucha dificultad en la vida, en el deporte, y que no nos rendimos. Buscamos mirarnos para adentro, a ver cuál era el error, cuáles son los errores que seguimos teniendo. En este lapso de partido tuvimos una semana para entrenar, en la cual pudimos profundizar ejercicios y maneras de las cuales estábamos acostumbrados cuando entrenábamos una semana seguida. Es verdad que las victorias siempre ayudan, pero las victorias no llegan por sí solas, porque hay maneras de ganar. Y las 3 maneras que tuvimos de ganar fueron jugando muy inteligentes. Ahora quedan muchos partidos por delante, todos los equipos para nosotros son muy difíciles. Sí, lo que les pido a los jugadores es que mantengan calma. Calma cuando se pierde y calma cuando se gana. Porque este fútbol da vuelta constantemente y muchas veces la gente termina siendo esclavo de sus palabras. Solo tenemos una sola palabra que es trabajo, convicción, compañerismo, fe. Y la fe es algo fundamental, de la cual trato de transmitir. Porque creo en el trabajo, creo en las personas, creo en los jugadores que entreno. Pero bueno, queda mucho el fútbol y a veces se gana, a veces se pierde, a veces se exagera en lo que se dice. Y estamos viviendo en pandemia. Entonces yo no salgo de esa base, que realmente se está viviendo de una manera extraña, porque estamos todos los días pensando en no contagiarnos de coronavirus. Entonces, realmente hay pensamientos que pueden ser futbolísticos, pero hay pensamientos de vida. No estamos viviendo a nivel mundial futbolístico un tema normal. Y hay goleadas en todo el mundo. Todo el mundo, porque hay equipos que han invertido $400 millones y le han hecho 5 goles. Entonces, nadie está, digamos, fuera de esa posibilidad y nadie está fuera de la posibilidad de ganar partidos. Pero digamos que se está viviendo el fútbol como se vive afuera, con incertidumbre.
All right. Thank you very much, Matias and Augustine. And we will be bringing in a couple players shortly.
Welcome back to episode number 63 of Black and Azul. Charles Wollin with you at the top of Earthquake Stadium. Here are section 113 gantry. Alex Morgan and Joel Soria with you as well. Matias Almeyda saying not one player stands out, but rather the team. Each player has to give their own in whatever position. He talks about the purple sweater because our very own Jamon Moore parachuted into the press conference quite clearly, mobily, of course, virtually. And he said, the worst thing that I can do in my life is to dress myself or address myself because of luck. It does not depend on the color of the clothing that I put on. He went on to chat about Andy Rios. He said Andy Rios is one of the players that runs the most, and he plays with his soul. In football, you play as a team. He went on finally to say, I think we might be forgetting about the tournament we played in Orlando. You saw a really competitive team. The restart of this tournament for each team has been difficult. This tournament is unstable, which he went to chat a little bit about at the end there, about COVID and what we're going through as a not just a community here in our country, but as well across the world. And then Joel Soria had the chance to ask him about player signings, and I'll end with this, and I'll shoot this over back to you, Joel. He said, we have to fight with the arms that we have. Joel, what did you think of his press conference? Always a lot to say, Matias Almeyda, but pretty candid, and just a genuine person that just gives his heart every single press conference.
Obviously, that's the nature of Almeyda when he gets in front of the microphones. Tonight was no different. He definitely did not show all of his cards to us. He was, very much quiet and a bit reserved. He didn't really want to go into the topic of signings. I asked him whether or not the Quakes would be looking to sign a player or two to fill the void that players like Lopez, Kasia, and Vaco have left given their international duty, and just other voids that have, come with the departure of Magnus Eriksson, injuries, etc. He said that, the Quakes are going to have to take it one game at a time, that he's going to have to really, paraphrasing here, but really what he was trying to get across is that the players that he has are the players that he's going to have in the future. It didn't really seem like he seems confident that the Quakes are going to be able to pull in a player to this transfer period. Now, as we make memory here, Jesse Fiorelli about a month ago was quoted on the Mercury News saying that the Quakes were in position to sign 1 or 2 players this transfer window. Now, I don't want to rule it out just based on Almeyda's comments tonight, because he tends to be, pretty reserved on that end. He plays it at a much more strategic level than other managers would, I would say. He's been in this for far too long. He knows that certain comments at the wrong time can really jeopardize the effectiveness of a potential transfer. So, but he could have sounded much more positive. That definitely has to be said. We have Jackson here.
Appreciate it. All right, so we are now joined by midfielder Jackson Yueill and can jump right into questions. So let's start with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Jackson, congrats on the win and the contract as well. Wanted to ask about this 3-game run you guys are on. It feels like you've turned a corner. Do you feel like you guys have turned a corner in your season? Do you feel like maybe you can handle the sort of rigors of this difficult season a little bit better at this point?
Yeah, these 3 games definitely gave us, or brought us back some of our confidence that we had in Orlando, and it's been a difficult year with all the eruptions of playing and not playing, and then the games so close together. So we had a little bit of a tough month there, but I think these 3 games definitely kind of helped us get a little bit of our confidence back. The way we play, the way we pass, the way we press. So I definitely hope that we can keep building from this and get better and better each game.
Thank you, Jackson. We'll now go to Alex Morgan.
Hi, Jackson. Congratulations on the victory and on the new contract. One of the things that looked really strong tonight from you guys was the build-up and playing out of the back and the possession. That was something that you guys were talking about after a couple of the heavy losses that you needed to improve. What do you think has made the difference? How much of it is just drilling it and training it more? Maybe JT Marcinkowski, his distribution as well?
Yeah, it's with the game so close, it's difficult to train. We kind of had a week off. I think after one of these games, and we were able to train a little bit more, fine-tune a few things. But like I said earlier, it's a bit of confidence. I think the beginning games, we kind of came back slow, and building out of the back and playing difficult balls in and around the box and playing a risky style of football is takes courage and it takes a lot of confidence, and we were missing that. And I think of course with JT back there, he's got phenomenal feet and his distribution is great. But I think everyone has kind of stepped up and picked up where we were in Orlando and being able to break lines and beat that first initial press to get ourselves a better chance higher up the field.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's go to Abby Mood.
Thank you. So besides the consecutive 3 games, you're also now in a playoff position and above the line for the first time this season. So what does that mean for the mindset of the team, and how does that speak to the persistency and cohesion that you've developed over the past couple of months?
Yeah, I think we have a really strong group. We have a really deep group, and you saw a lot of younger guys come in today and get minutes, which is great. So many games together. And so the cohesion between everyone, I think, has been fantastic. I think we're taking it one step at a time, one game at a time. And you can tell that in these games. I think each game we're kind of getting better and better, and you can see improvement with the ball and without the ball. And so that's our focus. Just kind of trying to improve game in and game out and fine-tune the little details, and hopefully at the end we're where we want to be.
Thank you. Let's go to Joel Soria.
Hey, Jackson, congrats on the win, and most importantly, congrats on the new contract. I want to touch on that latter point. How difficult was for you, or maybe it wasn't, how difficult was it to come to the consensus that you wanted to sign this deal? Did you ever entertain any other offer, any other possibility than signing this multi-year deal with the Quakes?
No, not really. I think this is where I want to be. This is the project that I want to be a part of. And from Matias to the locker room, it's a family that I've grown to love and really appreciate. And so this is where I want to be for the future. And I'm excited to keep playing for this club and seeing how far we can go in all the years to come.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's go to Carlos Ramirez next.
Hi, Jackson. Congrats on the win and on the contract. I want to touch on that contract. Is there a clause or a specific point in your contract that if you receive an offer from abroad, from Europe, let's say, you can just freely go and explore that option? Thanks.
No, there's not a clause. Just subject to the team.
Thank you, Jackson. Let's take one last question from Robert Jonas.
Thank you. And we're going to continue a little of the contract talk here. And again, congratulations. It is fantastic to see you pledging your future to San Jose. Your coach did mention, of course, and has said on many occasions that he sees a potential move to Europe in your future. In terms of that connected with the idea of the project that he does promise, what is it about staying with San Jose, working with Coach Matias, that's going to help you both as a professional at the club level, at the international level, and maybe when a bigger move comes your way?
Yeah, I think you can see it in everyone in the locker room. I think just the enjoyment of him being there and kind of the culture that we have will elevate anyone's game. And so when you're playing in a team like this, where the coach has a lot of faith in you, and the fans are supporting you, it's easy to keep improving and wanting to do better and do more. And so that was one of the main reasons for it. I feel very, very privileged to be working with the staff and have the teammates that I do. And I think, of course, there's the big picture and there's the future and there's World Cups to be played and there's a lot of big teams. But I think MLS is going to be one of the biggest leagues in the world. I want to help make it that way. I want to make one of the best teams in that league.
All right. Thank you, Jackson, and congrats again on the 3 points.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. JT Marcinkowski will be joining us very shortly.
All right, there you have Jackson Yueill. He said we have a really strong group. We have a really deep group. We're taking it one step at a time, one game at a time. That's our focus, trying to improve game in, game out. Asked about his contract or potentially going to Europe, he said, no, not really. This is a project I want to be a part of. This is where I want to be for the future. Excited to be playing for this club for all the years to come. Double down, asked on that question, is there a clause about Europe? He said there's no clause. And then asked finally there by our colleague Robert Jonas about what Matias brings to kind of elevate his game. He said you can see it within the locker room. Matias elevates everyone's game. And then Jackson went on to talk about where he sees himself playing. And he said there's World Cups to be played. Alex, what did you think of Jackson's comments tonight in that post-match press conference?
Yeah, well, there's obviously a lot of talk about his new contract, Charles. He said, this is where I want to be in San Jose, that he never really entertained any other offers. And honestly, I don't see why he would. I think he's really thrived under Matias Almeyda and made himself key, made himself critical to this system. And I actually think that his success here, it just reflects well on the organization. It reflects well, particularly on Jesse Fiorinelli, on his management of this team, because not a lot of general managers or coaches really trust the super draft process anymore or put much stock into the super draft. But Jesse has talked about how that's an important source of talent for the Quakes. And it wasn't always obvious that Jackson Yueill would succeed, right? Especially under Dominic Kinnear, but he's really flourished under Matias Almeyda. So to have seen his growth over the last year and a half, I'm excited for the steps he can continue to make in the next year and a half. And potentially make himself a part of the 2022 World Cup squad for the U.S. men's national team.
Do we know exactly how he responded to Carlos's question, though? I wasn't sure if he said no, maybe, yes. It sounded like he was a bit muffled, and to be honest, it didn't really sound like he was expecting that question whatsoever regarding the clause. I wasn't sure. Can you guys help me out, Alex, Charles?
I think it was a tentative no is what I heard.
He said something about subject to the team, but I wasn't too sure what he was alluding to.
I would assume that there's some sort of buyout clause in there. That seems pretty typical, but we don't know the details of the contract.
And we got JT Marcinkowski up here with us. He's about to begin his post-match press conference. We'll give it to you live now.
Hi, JT. Congrats on the win and on the clean sheet as well. For what it's worth, you were my man of the match tonight. This is your third consecutive start now. Do you see yourself assuming this role permanently and being this team's goalkeeper for the long term?
Well, first of all, thanks for the shout out. But if Matias calls my name, then I'll be ready to play. I think we run a really good run right now, and I think the team mentality and team chemistry has been really good. Definitely a lot better than it was a few weeks ago. So we should keep going forward in the same vibe and same kind of collective effort.
Thank you, JT. Let's now go to Joel Soria.
JT, congrats on a third straight victory. Congrats on shout out and another solid performance. Obviously, this team has largely benefited from a couple of things. One, changes to the starting 11. Two could be a different tactical approach. And three, just, the pace of the game. My question is, given that you guys have these 9 points under your belt now, and given that you have or are in a playoff position and definitely in contention to remain there for the upcoming weeks, how do you think the locker room feels about going up against a Portland team that really complicated your guys' style of play last time you guys faced them?
Yeah, I think the good thing is that we didn't play them too long ago. There's a lot of video that we can watch and kind of figure some things out. I think they did well. They took advantage on our mistakes, but I think that's something that we want to improve on. And I think we're in a much different spot than we were a few weeks ago when we played them now, and we've kind of got back to who we are and playing, earthquake style of soccer. And so we just have to keep the mentality going. So much of it is kind of that group effort. It's a team effort. Doesn't matter if you're starting or coming off the bench. As you've seen in the past few games, it's subs are scoring. Tonight, Paul with his first goal, and couldn't be happier for him. Gilbert, Saeed coming off the bench, Cade. So I think just taking that group mentality and collective effort into a tough place to play in Portland, but we just have to fight together.
Thank you, JT. Let's go to Robert Jonas.
Thank you. And I'll kind of heap on with the congratulations. I think it's also your first shutout victory in your MLS career. So definitely something to be proud of there. I think that, a lot of us are a bit surprised at the turnaround, especially given some of the lows the team was going through just a few weeks ago. It would have been easy for the locker room maybe to pack it in. What has been, if you will, what has been the conversation amongst players? What has been the message, maybe from coaches that has allowed you guys to experience this turnaround? And maybe, to balance that, what is it going to take to continue to have that confidence and that mentality moving forward?
Yeah, I think to continue it, I think is just not getting too high or too low. As you've seen this league, results kind of dictate how things go in the locker room. And so when you win, it's a good time, and we just have to keep that same mentality going forward. we can't get too high on these wins, and we can't get too low when we lose. It's just trying to maintain that same equal line and just consistently getting better game in, game out, and looking at our mistakes, looking at things we did well, and kind of trying to improve on those things.
Thank you, JT. This question comes from Jamon Moore. When you took over as a starter in 2018 and again here in 2020, the team was going through a bit of a rough stretch. What's been the biggest difference for you so far in 2020 compared to 2 years ago?
Yeah, to be honest, like I really don't know if I can compare the two. The club was in a lot different spot back then as we are now, and I kind of just want to stay in the present. I don't want to think too much about the past. It was great getting those games in 2018, but just kind of want to focus on the here and now, and just helping the team in any way that I can, and just trying to get us the best results that we can.
Thank you. We're going to take 2 more questions, starting with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. JT, I wanted to ask, I noticed in the first half there was a great chance that Christian had. You sent a ball way downfield, and he got on the end of it, and he almost scored on the play. Is that something you've been working on, trying to spring that surprise and set up a teammate, on a really, really quick counter? Or was that just one of those moments where things just kind of come together, and it would have been nice if you'd gotten the assist, but it wasn't necessarily planned that way?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. Yesterday in training, we knew that they had a pretty high line, and so we definitely talked about looking over the top and trying to play Christian through. But I also think it wasn't something that we totally planned, and it was just kind of one of those spur of the moment things. And I kind of got lucky with the ball, and Christian made a really good run, but unfortunate not to finish it off. But glad that we got a few more goals in and could come away with 3 points.
Thank you. And last question to Carlos Ramirez.
Hi, JT. Congrats on the win, on the clean sheet. Flo was going to miss the next game due to the yellow card he got today. So that we can probably assume that Tanner's going to play center back with Oswaldo for that Portland game if he is fit enough. How does it change your game, if any, the fact that you're going to have 2 left-footed center backs on that game? I mean, specifically for the build-up from the back. Thanks.
Yeah, I really don't know who's going to play. I think we have to get guys recovered and watch some video on them, and then we can assess where we are in a few days from now. But whoever does play, I think you've seen that whoever comes in makes a really big impact, and it's gonna be the same mentality and same feel for whatever 11 is out there. So.
All right, JT, thank you very much for your time, and congrats again on the victory.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you on Sunday.
There's JT Marcinkowski, his 3rd victory in a row, playing in goal for the San Jose Earthquakes. Our colleague, again, Robert Jonas, saying this is his first shutout of his MLS career, his first clean sheet. He went on to say, I think, about Portland, because that's the next opponent. I think it's good that we didn't play them too long ago. They took advantage of our mistakes. And then he was asked about what the turnaround's been. And he said, we got back to who we are, the Earthquake style of soccer, taking the group mentality. We just got to play together, not getting too high or too low. When you win, you just got to keep on going forward, maintain that same equal line, as what he said. Asked to compare his 2018 experience under Mikel Stare to just a few matches ago when the Quakes were losing. He said, it's great getting games in 2018, but I'm focusing on the here and the now, and focusing on the best results that we can. Alex Morgan, back over to you. You had said that JT was your man of the match. Why is that? And what if a big difference he has made being in goal, and what does that for you?
I mean, I think it was pretty obvious for me. His performance was more or less flawless. He had some spectacular saves. His distribution was key. in San Jose's buildup. And he was also strong in the air. Vancouver were peppering a lot of crosses, bombarding the Quakes with a lot of crosses early on in that first half, and he handled it really well. And look, I've been pretty vocal about my opinions about JT and his strengths. And it's frustrating to me that Matias Almeyda hasn't been. I asked him about it in Matias Almeyda's press conference earlier. I asked him about JT, and he refused to address JT. I don't even think he said his name in the response. He just pretty consistently actually, has refused to say anything positive about JT at all. And that makes me wonder whether he has a plan for JT and whether he's playing his card shrewdly or whether he's actually hindered JT's development and is only playing him now because his hand has been forced. I think that's an open question at this point.
I mean, he's playing him, though. He's been playing him for 3 straight games now, and they've managed to get wins. I mean, do you want him to throw flowers at him or what? You know, I think we're missing a big part of the picture here. We don't get to attend practices anymore. You know, we don't know the type of conversations that they're having. From what I've seen on the field, Matias tries to instruct JT when he's on the ball, and JT has also been very vocal about, you know, the effect that Almeyda has had in the locker room and about how he wants to continue on in playing, you know, the Earthquakes way. And, you know, I don't think there's much friction there, Alex, to be honest with you. I think we might be overlooking or might be looking too far into this situation. Don't you think?
That's possible, Joel. But look, I don't think that JT can put in a performance like that and play so consistently as he has been and not show that in training, right? If he's playing in training the way he's been playing in the games, then he should have been this team starter much earlier, weeks ago. And it's surprising to me how Matias Almeyda didn't recognize that. It seemed obvious to me and to my colleague Jamon, my co-host Jamon. We were pushing for JT to be getting the starting position weeks ago, and I think that obviously he's now, Matias Almeyda has now made that decision, and that's the correct decision. But the fact that he was so late to it, it was a little baffling to me.
No, but here's the thing, though. Matias, this is how Matias handles his youngsters. If you remember, when Cade made the appearance, his debut against Rayados, and he scored, he talked about how we weren't going to see Cade for months, and we didn't see him for another 7 months. And even when Cade came back onto the scene and he scored just a couple of months ago, Matias was pretty quiet about him. He's been quiet about his youngsters. Why? Because he doesn't want to put extra pressure on them. And I think that's just Matias looking after players that can definitely be broken by expectations that they can't, you know, that they can't put on their shoulders. To me, it just makes sense for Matias to remain calm about JT. He and the front office know the type of player that he is, the prospect that he is, the future that he might have. I think they're just trying to take it slow. And as I told you and Jamon all along, it's not that I'm against JT or that I'm pro Vega. It's that, you know, you have to really, really consider how you want to go about these situations, given that the goalkeeper position is one that is so sensitive. You have to, and in addition to that, as I mentioned, you have to also protect your youngsters. They are the future of this club. If they're trying to become a selling team, then you need to know how to manage these situations and how to maneuver around tricky situations. And I think that Almeyda and co have done pretty well in that.
Here's the difference, though, Joel, between a player like Cade Cowell and a player like JT Marcinkowski. Cade Cowell is 16 years old. JT Marcinkowski is 23. He's as old as guys like Jackson Yueill, who've been consistent MLS starters now for 2-3 years. And so I think he's at the phase in his career, the stage in his career where he's ready. he's ready to be the starter for this team in the long term. And it feels like he was held back a little too long, in my opinion.
Well, the comment section is certainly busy. And I just want to give a shout out to one of our other hosts, Jamon Moore, who's slotting in here as the defensive midfielder. Not as a quarterback, not as a cornerback, because we're playing soccer, not American football. But Jamon points out correctly here that JT had a 0-0 clean sheet against Colorado on October 21st, 2018. So thank you, Jamon, for correcting me as I just corrected you. And I appreciate you. We appreciate you. We miss you. We know you're with your family right now. Jamon also said weak answer to the sweater question too. Almeyda with several weak answers tonight. I thought that's an interesting remark because at the end of the question, he said, I'm not a model. And it was funny because I was looking on the sideline and Alex and Joel were, look at the sweater, purple sweater. And I thought to myself, you know what? It is kind of model-esque, with that sweater on, and maybe it is the good luck sweater, even though he said it's probably not. And then Jamon wrote that JT is Yueill's age. JT is not a youngster. Getting in this good debate between Alex and Joel here from the rest.
Can I
of
just
our,
name
yeah.
something real quick though?
Yeah.
Sorry, Charles. Sorry
No,
to
go
hijack.
ahead. Yeah.
JT is Yueill's age. JT is not a youngster. JT is a goalkeeper. Yueill is a midfielder, right? And we know that the goalkeeper's position has a whole different dynamic than a midfielder or a forward. In every position, there's a different career lifespan. We know that goalkeepers tend to start at a later age and they retire at a later age. So I just want to make that very clear. I want to throw that out there.
I mean, I'm not sure that's
not valid.
Well, look, I mean, you see guys like Donnarumma is 21 and he's been AC Milan starting goalkeeper now for like 3 years. So there definitely have been goalkeepers who have succeeded at younger ages. Obviously I think goalkeepers can last longer in the game because the position isn't as physically demanding, possibly, but I think they're still capable of starting their careers at a young age.
Well, sure. I mean, no one's if you're Donnarumma and you have, the potential to be one of the world's greatest goalkeepers, and sure, you throw him into the fire. At that time, AC Milan were a dumpster fire, and they managed to put him on the field, and he managed to hold his own. Now, the situation here in San Jose was much different. For a long period of time, Vega was doing pretty well. And then, what happened? His bearing wall started to crumble. And Matias kept him on the field. But eventually, he took him off. He put in JT. And JT has done well. The team has done well. And the show goes on. I don't see what's wrong.
All right. Greg Cohn wants me to change the topic. Thank you, Greg Cohn. I think our producer does too. But if you guys didn't enjoy that, I enjoyed it because I love to hear a spirited debate, good banter here on the show. And why not? That's why we are Black and Azul. And that's why we do this show. A couple comments from the audience and our viewership. Vapotera, yep, JT for sure. Kevin Gomes, Vega did a great job showing JT what not to do. Matt Wyke says he agrees with Joel. And then KMJ Vet writes, I agree with Alex on this. Points lost by Vega early in the season didn't need to get away. So you guys are all split on this, and that's good. And that's why we're here. And that's why we debate this beautiful game. And that's why we all love this beautiful game, because for everyone that's tuning in and writing these comments, you obviously love the beautiful game too, and you have an opinion. And that's what's so wonderful about this sport and the brilliant stuff. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the left back situation. Tommy Thompson slotting in at left back. Previously, Tommy Thompson was at right back and Nick Lima was at left back. Then Nick Lima supplanted Tommy Thompson and won the place at right back. And now they're flipped again. So Tommy Thompson's at left back. Nick Lima's at right back. filling in for Lopez. How did we think that that Tommy did back there this evening? For me, it was, routine. He didn't have too much to do. He got caught a little bit for pace a couple times, and I could see Florian Youngworth kind of clean up the mess when he got caught in behind a couple of times. But Lopez did score last game before he went on international break. But at the same time, and also had some really good performances, obviously won that left back spot for this Quakes team. But let's wrap up on this left back spot and then final thoughts. Alex?
Yeah, Charles, I thought their back line looked strong again tonight. The question was whether Tommy Thompson would play on the right side and Lima on the left or vice versa. And I think that Lima was probably on the right to deal with the attacking threat of Ali Adnan. Not only did the Quakes shut him down, did Lima shut him down, but they exposed him. I think he's one of the best defenders in the league, definitely the only DP left back that I can think of. But you couldn't tell that tonight because Lima and Espinosa were absolutely shredding him with those runs in behind. San Jose were able to create a lot of space and a lot of chances on that side. They had, I think, multiple 1v1 situations with the goalkeeper in the first half, and then Espinosa converted the go-ahead goal from that right-sided attack in the second. I think the only drawback with the fullback situation, I guess, is that the Quakes didn't have a lot of left-sided attack tonight without Lopez. More space opened up there, I think, after Andy Rose's red card and Vancouver's other red card. But you could really feel Lopez's absence in the first half. He's one of the team's most progressive passers. He gets forward on the overlap, and he tries things. And I think the Quakes really missed that attacking presence and attacking energy.
Well, I think for the longest time, the fullback situation was the source of a lot of headaches here at Earthquakes Way. And recently, it's been, the tree that keeps on giving. You have Lima with back-to-back games with assists. You have Tommy Thompson, who to me looked decent. I would say above average, to be honest, and managed to even fit in an assist as well. Charles, you talk about Lopez. We've talked about Lopez time and time again now. Goal last game, one of the revelations of this season without a doubt. So I think the Quakes have a good problem now in the fullback positions, one that they haven't had in I don't know how long. I mean, definitely one that wasn't here. I mean, was here probably way before I even started covering the team. So a bit unusual, but definitely positive for the Quakes on the fullback situation.
Yeah, and Jamon chimes in here. Nick Lima shut down outside back, called it last week, Charles. Great job on Vancouver's strong side. Credit to the other member of our team, Jamon Moore, who's not here with us tonight, but is tuning in and patrolling the comments and the question and answer section this evening. But yes, Jamon, you are 100% correct. Joel, appreciate your comments on this. Greg Cohn, back to you. You've been on fire tonight, by the way, Greg Cohn, and you're also going to be the commenter of the night. Greg Cohn. I really like the combo play between Lima and Espinosa. Greg Cohn also says the real story with the fullbacks is that Lima stayed on the right. And I'm sure that Jamon would agree with you as well. All right, we're coming up to final thoughts this evening. And I am going to go ahead and start with Joel Soria. Your final thoughts this evening, Joel.
We talked about how this particular game against the Whitecaps was going to be a must-win a couple of weeks ago. The Quakes followed through. They won 3-0 here against a 9-man Caps side that looked dangerous at times, but mostly, I would say, lukewarm. They didn't look like they were out here to win, and the Quakes, get to polish off players and sequences that had already been looking good before the game even started. So this is, I would say, the best place that the Quakes could really be in ahead of a match against the Portland Timbers in Portland that is really going to test this Quakes team, and to me is really going to show me what this Quakes side is made of.
All right, Alex Morgan over to my left side here. Your final thoughts and views on this evening.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I'll repeat what I said at the top of the show, which is I think this was San Jose's best performance of the season. It was a comprehensive victory. It was their first shutout win of the year, 3-0 performance. I think they were firing on all cylinders. JT Marcinkowski had a really strong game. Christian Espinosa had a really strong game. They had a game plan and they executed it well. And the fact is, they're in a playoff position right now. The table is a little bit skewed because of they have played more games than some other teams in the playoff race. But the fact is, they're in a playoff position, and now it's on them to go and defend that position in Portland. I think that's going to be a huge test for them. That they're facing Portland and the Seattle Sounders in the next couple of weeks, and I'm excited for how much this team has been improving and what they can do this week.
All righty, everybody. The Quakes win their third match here in a row, their second in a row here at Earthquakes Stadium, and it's just so everybody knows it's only the second time they've won here at home. We'll go ahead and pull up the standings one last time for you this evening. There you can see the Quakes in the 7th spot in the West, meaning that they would be in a current playoff position. Yes, we didn't think it would be possible a few weeks ago, but it's happening, and they're here. And you heard the lads. They've got a big match against Portland in Portland this weekend. Let's go ahead and show you the fixtures, the upcoming fixture list here. Away at Portland and then away at the Galaxy a week from today. Then they'll be hosting Seattle. Then they'll play Vancouver back in Portland. And then they're back here at home hosting Salt Lake, a team that they beat in the round of 16 at MLS's back. And then a couple of last matches against LAFC and the Sounders. So the crunch time, the business end of the schedule and the competition this evening. Again, 3-0 victors as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into our show. We appreciate it. We are a community-run and supported show, Black and Azul, with episode number 63 here. You can see the flag in the upper corner of the screen. I think I'm pointing to there. There it is. There it is, right there. It is LGBT flag because it was Pride Night here at Earthquakes Stadium. Pride is year-round, and we wanted to socialize that and put that up here as well as part of Progress. That is the Progress-specific flag, a variant on the rainbow flag up in the corner as well to highlight some progress and some marginalized communities within the LGBT community as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it as always. Our associate producer is Aaron Sholl. Off tonight and with his family is Jamon Moore. Our executive producer and director is Jason Sholl. Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Charles Wollin signing off for this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe, everybody. Please wear a mask. We are mandated to wear the masks in the stadium. That's why we wear them. And take care of yourselves. Think of your fellow human beings. Think of humanity. And we will see you next time. Good night.